Today we're going to talk about how to properly perform a power snatch. And the power snatch is a complex movement. It is many muscle groups, it's many joints, it's a quick movement. It takes the weight from ground to overhead, which makes it a more dangerous movement. But because of the speed, the sequence, the timing, all of the things that have to be properly done and executed during this lift, it makes it pretty dangerous. You're a higher risk of injury. Therefore, proper education is important when doing a lift like this. So we're going to talk about proper form, but we're also going to talk about some techniques that could help you when learning the movement in order to properly perform. So those techniques are the freezing degrees of freedom and feedback. First, the freezing degrees of freedom. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to break down that movement into, or the overall lift into smaller movements. We're going to make the arms their own thing. We're going to make the legs their own thing. Just break it down as small as we can, or as small as necessary for the athlete that we're working with to be able to grasp the concepts. Because some athletes can just watch you a couple times, listen to your direction, and go with it. But other athletes need to work on those little building blocks that make up that movement for them. So being able to take a complex movement and make it those small, simple pieces that once they're strung together, make that movement work. So we're going to use that. And then another thing that we're going to use for this movement is feedback. Feedback is essential for any athlete, no matter their skill level, no matter the amount of years that they've been playing the sport. Yes, it changes based upon different athletes and how they respond to feedback. It also changes based upon what their prior knowledge is, because you can use certain things to lead them into a new skill, like the beginning of the power snatch and the beginning of the power clean are very similar. You're going to pull up with that deadlift movement, and you're going to thrust your hips forward, and you're going to do the high pull until you get to a certain point, and then those movements become very different. Not to mention the grips are different, but they have very similar movements, and you can use that knowledge to link to prior knowledge if you know your athlete. So the three types of feedback that we're going to talk about are internal feedback, external feedback, and kind of a form of feedback is proprioception. So first is internal feedback. So that's feedback within ourselves that is triggered by the physical movements and the feelings that we have based upon what we're doing. It's knowing what is happening or what is supposed to happen, what did happen, and being able to reflect on that, or having a triggering moment within a movement that says, hey, I need to come back to this and revisit it. Either this isn't right, or this is something that I'd like to do again because I feel like I did it really well. This is not generally a beginning athlete, like with a skill, when they're first learning a skill, this is not their bread and butter. They're not going to understand it. They're going to rely on that external feedback. But once they reach the associative and the autonomous stages of learning, and they're more fluid in their movements, and they know what they're doing, and they don't require that direct instruction all the time, they're going to start noticing, like, hey, that wasn't right, and they'll go back and fix it themselves. For example, on the back squat, if you're not going low enough, generally you know. Sometimes you don't care because it's really heavy weight and you just want to get it over with, but generally you know, and you make a note of, that didn't feel right, let me try it again. External feedback. External feedback is it's from an outside source. So it's the direction or the look that you receive, or anything that you get from outside of yourself. So this often comes during or after a performance, depending on what you're doing and how you're doing it. It's not always appropriate to give on-the-spot feedback, but maybe later on, having that discussion, or once you finished a dangerous or more higher risk lift, you have that discussion with your coach. This usually comes, like I said, from a coach. Maybe you have a lifting partner who can say, hey, this is what I saw. Your back wasn't straight. You were lifting with your arm, with your back, not your legs. Be careful of this. Having another person is really helpful when it comes to things like lifting, because you're supposed to keep that neutral spine, which includes your head. So it's hard to be near a mirror. A mirror can be used as external feedback if you don't have a person. It's not ideal because you have to turn that head, which does not keep your spine in alignment, like we always tell our athletes. But we can also use our cell phones, because we all have one. They all take videos, and we can use that to slow motion play back what we're doing, so that we can hone in on those key movements and see if we're actually performing them correctly. And then proprioception. Proprioception is the knowledge or awareness of our bodies, the movements, and the positioning. So that external feedback from our coaches kind of leads us to a knowledge of where we are, how we're moving. It gives us those key terminologies or those triggering words or cues that we can use to get our body where it needs to be, drop our butts down or chest out, tighten your back, tighten your abs, whatever we need to do to make sure that we're performing the lift correctly. We'll get those external cues, which feeds proprioception. We know where we're at, what we're doing, how we're doing it, how it feels. We make a mental note of that. And then later on, it'll feed our internal feedback. So what we're going to do is when we're learning a new lift, a great way to do it is with a PVC pipe or a training bar, that has no weight on it, or anything you can find that is kind of barbell shaped. Today I'll show you using I use it for stretching. So many things you can use. And we're just going to rehearse these movements. We're going to rehearse it with this lightweight item because we don't want to reach exhaustion. Once we reach exhaustion, we're not likely to perform the lift right anyway, and it puts us at risk for that injury that I talked about. So we're going to do that. Rehearsal and repetition is going to feed that muscle memory. We're going to build that long-term memory of the movement so we can perform it successfully over and over. And then again, we're going to give our coach that opportunity to critique us with that external feedback. We're going to build our proprioception, the knowledge of where we are, what we're doing, how we're moving, and give ourselves a chance to get to that stage of providing internal feedback and recognizing what we need to do. So, the first thing we're going to do is get our grip. So you want a overhanded grip with thumbs tucked in. We're not just going to leave them dangling. They need to be tucked in. Our grip should hold the bar right about our hip hinge. So if you bend over, where does that hip pocket sit? And that's where you want your bar. One of the things we can do is a lot of people that deadlift, we need to keep it close and snap the hips. So it's slow, 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 slow up to the knee and then snap. Make sure your feet are hip width apart. You're coming down to about a half a squat, so your bottom's gonna still be up a bit on this one. you slow until you clear the knees and snap. And then from there, we would work on that high pull. So you want to make sure that you're coming up close to the body. Elbows are up and out. So quick, up and out. So we're gonna do each one of these movements 3 to 5 times. It gives you a chance to feel how it's supposed to feel, and it gives your coach a chance to get around, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do, and just checking it out, providing you that feedback and allowing you to make corrections. So now if we go to that high hang position where we're just above that knee, we're going to add in the jump that goes at the top of the high pull, at the top of the hips. And we're in a high pull. And there's many combinations of practice movements that we could do to make sure that we realize this is how we stand, this is what we do. And then when we get a barbell, I don't have bumper plates, so we're gonna do it without plates, but you would stand, hips are about shoulder width apart, chest up, bottom, back, and that's the power snatch. So we talked about proper performance of the power snatch. We talked about freezing degrees of freedom and performing different parts of the movement all on their own. We talked about providing feedback, internal, external, proprioception, having knowledge of your body and the movements. And then we talked about how to actually perform the lift. Have a great day and enjoy your power snatch.